Do me a favor, share this video or hit like if you too hit a home run at Yankee Stadium yesterday.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days. Same handle for Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of me is to just go right here on YouTube and leave a comment. And I promise I'll read them. I'm going to read a bunch of them today. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And I think that's all let's go through the trivia question. The trivia question, a lot of people sent me answers to the trivia question, and I knew there would be some people who would get tripped up on one or two things. Those are my favorite kind of trivia questions. The question was, who are the three people who both played for a World Series champion Yankee team and actually played in the World Series and managed the Yankees to the World Series title? Now, I got a bunch of people who said Yogi Berra, which seems like a great guess. Lord knows he won enough titles as a player for the Yankees. He also won several rings as a coach for the Yankees. And while he managed the Yankees to the 1964 World Series, they never won the World Series with Yogi Berra as the manager. I had a couple people bring up Lou Piniella. And Lou Piniella did indeed play for the 1977 and 1978 World Series champion Yankees, and he did indeed manage a team to a World Series title, but he managed the Cincinnati Reds. John Cox, 1488, said Joe Girardi, Billy Martin, Hank Bauer. A phenomenal guess. Sorry, a little itch right there. A phenomenal guess, but not correct, because Hank Bauer did indeed manage a team to a World Series title, but it was not the Yankees. It was the Baltimore Orioles. Big John 08865 got it right. Billy Martin, who played in several World Series and was the hero of the 1953 World Series for the Yankees and managed them to the 1977 World Series title. Joe Girardi, who played in 96 and 99 and then was a manager in 2009. And Ralph Houck, my grandfather's least favorite person in Yankee history. Ralph Houck was a career backup to Yogi Berra and played in the World Series twice when the Yankees won it all. And then when Casey Stengel was forced out, they did not make Yogi Berra the manager in 1961. They made Ralph Houck the manager, and they won the World Series in 1961 and in 1962. And as my mother informed me, my grandpa, who was the biggest Yogi Berra fan in the world, said they won in spite of Ralph Houck. Tough crowd. Eventually, Ralph Houck forced Yogi Berra out of the Yankees. Let me say that sentence again. Ralph Houck forced Yogi Berra out of the Yankees after the 1964 World Series when the Yankees lost in Game 7. They wanted to push him out beforehand, and if he had lost the pen, he would have been fired instantly. But instead, he got the Game 7 of the World Series and still pushed him out. So there you go. That's your answer, though. Billy Martin, Joe Girardi, Ralph Houck. There you go. Let's also talk about who owned baseball, because that's going to lead into some of the topics we're going to have today. Who owned baseball for March 29th? Jose Soriano of the Angels. The Angels dusted themselves off after having their butt kicked by the White Sox, which is not easy to do. And that was a really humiliating beginning of the season for the Angels to be like, all right, here we go. They're going to start against the White Sox. And then the White Sox actually blew the doors off the dump. Good for Jose Soriano. The Angels' bats are still dead as a doornail, but they got one run. That's all they needed. Soriano threw 7 innings, 2 hits. Angels shut out the White Sox 1-0. Brandon Marsh went 3 for 4 with a home run. The Phillies topped Washington 11-6. The Phillies are winning games they should be losing right out of the gate. which is a very good sign for the Phillies because eventually things will be clicking and they'll be building upon wins instead of climbing back. Good for Eric Fedde and the Cardinals for winning 5-1 over Minnesota. And Fedde pitched very well for them. I'm going to get to the other person who owned baseball. I think you figured who it is. Half wobs go to Bo Bichette, who reached base 5 times with the Blue Jays, lost to Baltimore 9-4, and they may be losing Max Scherzer. Are the wheels coming off very early in Toronto? I don't know. It's not a good sign. Zach Littell fan, 7 Rockies over 6 innings, but the Rays were doubled up 2-1. Ahmad Rosario homered and got 2 more singles in the Washington 11-6 loss to the Phillies. Spencer Schwellenbach was really good, 6 innings of 1-hit shutout ball. The Braves were blanked by San Diego. But the other person who won baseball was, of course, Aaron Judge, who got 3 home runs, including a grand slam. He had 3 home runs in the first 4 innings. I thought it was even money he was going to join the 4 home runs in a game club right there. But he got another hit. The Yankees took the 20-9 slugfest from Milwaukee. That was either a Yankee-Brewer game or it was a Giants-Packers game. Not 100% sure about that. I do the Who Owns Baseball every day. I got Anthony Hutfuls says, you ever given a wob to a relief pitcher? Yeah, absolutely. I've done it several times last year, especially if someone gets pounded and they get relieved early on and someone comes out and throws 3 or 4 innings of solid relief. They may own baseball. And actually this year, we already have a pitcher who got a wob, and that was Landon Knack of the Dodgers, mainly because their starting pitcher didn't go deep in the game, and Landon Knack pitched well out of the bullpen. Lots of in the playoffs, I'm always giving it to relief pitchers because, it's illegal to have a pitcher throw more than 5 innings. And sometimes the relief pitcher is the one who dominates. All right. Speaking of dominating, Nestor Cortes, I feel for the guy because he's a fine pitcher and he's one of these, late bloomers it should be a heartwarming story that someone who is not a huge prospect comes out and has success in the major leagues. But the main thing people will remember him for is serving up that home run to Freddie Freeman in a game he should not have been playing in anyway because he hadn't pitched in a month. And then they brought him out in that situation. He threw 2 pitches. One was a pop-up to Ohtani, then intentional walk, and then the grand slam to Freddie Freeman. Well, he came back to New York after he was traded to Milwaukee in the Williams deal, which was a smart deal for both teams, I think. Williams was probably not going to sign long-term with Milwaukee, and Cortes, when he's healthy, is a decent starting pitcher. But you would imagine he had some nerves when he went back to New York. And remember the first game of the year, Austin Wells hit a leadoff home run on the first pitch of the game. Well, today they put Paul Goldschmidt in the leadoff spot, and he homered on the first pitch of the game. So I think we're going to see that's going to be a trend. The Yankees are just going to swing on the first pitch and hit a home run. And then Bellinger came up, and he swung and hit a home run on the second pitch of the game. And at that point, I picked up my phone and I started texting Stacey Gotsulias of Locked On Yankees. By the way, check out Locked On Yankees. It's a great podcast. I was going to text Stacey Gotsulias to be like, wow, 2 pitches, 2 home runs. And I hadn't finished sending the text when Aaron Judge hit a home run on the third pitch of the game. 3 pitches, 3 home runs. Safe to say, Nestor Cortes did not own baseball yesterday. The Yankees owned him. And they wound up hitting, 9 home runs? 3 of them by Aaron Judge. I mean, this is really what we're doing here. All right, sorry about that. I had a little bit of technical problems. I had to restart. Those who were watching the live stream, sorry, I had to cancel the live stream. But here we go. Essentially, Nestor Cortes was not fooling anybody. I have no idea why they didn't have the catcher go out there and calm him down after the first 2 home runs. He let up another home run that inning, and it was a game where the Yankees actually didn't play that well on the other side of the ball. Max Fried didn't pitch particularly well. The Brewers got right back into the game the very next inning, and the Yankees committed just a ton of errors in the game. They played a very, very sloppy game. And, they wound up committing how many errors? They wound up committing 5 errors in that game. one by Jazz Chisholm. Pablo Reyes, former Red Sox utility man, got a couple errors. Fried made an error. Volpe made an error. And of course, the Brewers used a position player to pitch because God forbid you give another pitcher an inning to, to get some work in on the second game of the season. But the Yankees pitching and defense was not very good, quite frankly. And they still won the game in a blowout, which is a really good sign for the Yankees. Kind of similar like how the Phillies have not looked really strong out of the gate, and they still have won their first few games. The Yankees looked really good in the first game, to be sure. On the other side today, they on Saturday, pitching wasn't good, defense was atrocious, and they still scored 20 runs. That's a good sign for the Yankees because if you're going to win games you didn't particularly play very well and on one side of it, that's a good sign when things start to click. Now, of course, there was a bunch of things pointing out the fact that the Yankees were using very weird bats. And in fact, that's one of the people who wrote in. Did I mention this? Lost flannel photo says you've got to talk about the new bats. They got him 9 dingers in a game, especially vicious comeback for Cortes. Yeah, the Yankees bats were weird. They were kind of bowling pin type. They look like different shaped bats. And Judge didn't appear to have a bat like that. God forbid you give Judge an advantage. But they also got home runs from Goldschmidt, Bellinger. Judge hit his 3 home runs. Wells hit his 2nd home run of the year. Jazz Chisholm homered. Volpe homered. Peraza homered. And they all had these weird bats. Well, that had a weird shape. I've never seen this shape before. I can only assume they've been approved by the league. I can only assume that these are not cheating bats that the Yankees have. You can't just show up with something. I can't show up with when I used to play wiffle ball, there was the fat bat. And we had the yellow bat that was just looked like a regular baseball bat, but we also had the fat bat. And we were only allowed to use the fat bat every once in a while because if you have the fat bat and you got a hold of it, boom, you can hit it right off the garage. So I assume that's not what's happening here. They didn't just sort of show up with a brand new bat that someone Frankenstein together for the Yankees to use. But if this is a new bat manufacturer or new bat style, this was one hell of an advertisement that they got in front of 46,000 fans at Yankee Stadium yesterday. I don't know. None of us know it. The announcers didn't seem to know anything about what was going on with these bats. Now, if we're going to find out that these bats don't fit the regulation of Major League Baseball, then yeah, that's going to be a problem. But for right now, it's kind of like, all right, it's like when a golfer gets a new kind of driver or something, and all of a sudden the ball goes further. I didn't think pitchers needed to have any other things going against them in a Major League Baseball game. But yeah, those bats were strange. They were very strange. But we'll see. I have to assume they're legal because if they aren't, then this is a scandal. But I've learned my lesson from trying to jump ahead of the facts in the Shohei Ohtani Ape gambling thing last year. I'm not going to come up with any conclusions or even theories until we learn more about it. So the Yankees are using weird bats and seem to be able to hit home runs at will, or at least at Nestor. Was it legal? Well, let's assume yes. All right, let's hear from our friends at FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra dollars to be used on anything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories. We got Tennessee and Houston. Those are neither Cinderella stories. They're a 1 and 2. The closest thing we have to a Cinderella story coming up, I guess we have, Michigan State and Auburn. There's no real Cinderella. Are there any Cinderellas left? I don't know the answer to that, and neither do you. But you can go bet on Auburn. You can go bet on Michigan State if you want. I'm putting my money on Auburn. Do you know why? Why not? Now, with tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is Simple to use. And when I win, I get paid instantly, no waiting around. And you know what? FanDuel makes it easy to back your teams and with the spread, totals, and game props. So visit fanduel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. FanDuel, let's earn some dough. Okay, this Sunday morning before the games start, I'm going to go through some of the. I got a bunch of great comments from people here. Useless Trucker, who's an everyday Sully listener, says the Dodgers win 5 in a row. Do you think the Dodgers will be the greatest team ever? Pump the brakes, Useless Truckers. It's not even April. It's not. How is this? How am I going to make a metric? This is the greatest team. You got to at least give us half a season. Yes, this is a very well-constructed Dodger team. We also don't know what, and they've won their first 5 games, and they played the Cubs very well in those 2 games in Detroit, and then they've played not Atlanta, Detroit very, very well in these first bunch of games back from Japan. Mookie Betts seems to be doing okay, as currently he's batting 500 with an OPS of 1.806, but that's in a sample size of 2 games. You know, Tommy Edman is he has an OPS of 905, but that's in the sample size of 5 games. So yeah, I mean they're playing well. Obviously, I think people picked them to play well. Greatest team ever? No, I'm not saying anything like that yet. First of all, you need to have a pitching staff that goes deeper into games. You need a complete bullpen. So I mean, the greatest team I ever saw was the 1998 Yankees. That's the most complete team I've ever seen in my life. There have been some teams that have been really, really complete up and down that didn't even win the World Series. I'm looking at you, 1993 Atlanta Braves. I'm looking at you, 1988 Oakland A's, and 1990 Oakland A's for that matter. The 90 Oakland A's team may have been the best of all those teams, maybe not in terms of the win-loss record, but in terms of the depth of that team, and they got swept in the World Series. So I'm not saying anything about them being the greatest team ever until we have more of a sample size than this. I've seen star-studded teams before, and sometimes those star-studded teams fulfill their destiny, and sometimes they fall flat on their face. But speaking of the Dodgers, Brian Usna 5606 says, will you please explain how an LA-based Dodger fan can see or hear all Dodger games home and away and have access to all MLB games? This is a gigantic problem with baseball. I've been talking about this for well over a decade. The blackout rules are so intensely stupid and antiquated and shows a lack of imagination in terms of how baseball is run that it's absolutely mind-boggling. We have seen that baseball's interest tends to be local. And so we're certainly finding this out in the Locked On Podcast Network. Baseball's interest is local. You're interested in your local team. And every once in a while, you'll notice a player from another team. But most of the time, you're interested in the local team. And most people watch games or watch anything. You're watching me now. Whatever shows you watch, whatever videos you watch tend to be on your device and not on your television. So naturally, there's a Venn diagram of people interested in local baseball and people watch things on their device. So where they blend over in a Venn diagram is exactly where they're restricting people to watch games. It's insane. Blackout rules are antiquated and they should all be taken away. Now, I believe there is a way to get a subscription to Sportsnet for like a couple $100 and you get all the Dodger games for a year. But the fact that we have to do that kind of research shows how stupid baseball is being. There should be no blackouts. And I'm saying this, I'll say it again, I'll say it 1,000 times. All games, if you pay a subscription fee, and I do, I should be able to see all the games. I'm not asking for something for free. I'm not pulling baseball socialism here. This is capitalism. This is what we're celebrating. This is why we have the jet flyovers, Dodger Stadium during the ring ceremony. A subscription fee. And I get to watch all the games, and they're in the same place. I'm not going to Roku or Apple. I've paid the subscription fee to see it here. And so when my mom said, where the hell is the Giants game? We're trying to watch the Giants game. It's a Friday. I said, oh, it's on Apple TV. No, You could have it on Apple TV all you want, but if you pay the subscription fee, you pay the premium. I'm willing to pay the premium. And if you're a diehard fan, chances are you're willing to pay the premium to be able to watch it in one place. But you have this city. I'm in Pasadena right now. This place is Dodger crazy right now. In the high school, kids are wearing Dodger gear and Dodger uniforms and everything like that. And my school is predominantly Latino. My school, and baseball is incredibly popular in the Mexican community in Los Angeles. And you see people walking around with Dodger caps and Dodger uniforms all the time at the high school. You go down the street in Pasadena, people are wearing Otani shirts, Betts shirts, Clayton Kershaw shirts, a lot of Fernando Valenzuela shirts. And so the Dodger popularity right now is sky high. And so it should be very easy for people to find it. To ask a question like the one that Brian Usna asked me is insane. And keep in mind, there still remains so many entertainment options out there that if baseball says, oh, you have to look for it, forget it. I've moved on. I've gone to Netflix. I've gone to something else. Baseball should be leading the way and be the sport of the internet era. And as long as they do stupid things like blackouts, I'm sorry. That's a big pile of insanity. Another big pile of insanity is you see this all the time right now. I get it's early in the season, but you got to start seeing pitchers pitch a little deeper into games, because if you were just relying on a parade of relievers, the pitchers you need to have the pitchers learn how to work out of jams and then use relief pitchers when the pitcher needs relief. If you have the same parade of relievers pitching every damn day, they're going to be worn out. And Stephen Colatrello, who's an everyday solid listener, says, you're speaking for many of us when the parade of relievers, tolerance for strikeouts at the start of the season, overseas, and more. Yeah, I mean, the parade of relievers drives me crazy because you're not letting a pitcher figure out how to work out of a jam. And sometimes getting that extra out in the sixth or the seventh will allow you to have a deeper bullpen if, heaven forbid, the game goes into extra innings. Also, the parade of relievers, as I said before, as I said the other day when I was talking about the Seattle-Sacramento game that happened, you're always under the assumption that the reliever is going to do their job. If you have someone who just, as I said the other day, the pitcher for Seattle, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, just got out Brent Rooker with 2 outs. You got 2 outs now. And then get out of that inning. But no, then they brought in a reliever, and the new reliever wet the bed. Maybe have the guy who was a little bit of momentum behind him say, okay, I figured that one out. Now let's go for it. And then you don't have to burn through your relievers. Or, heaven forbid, we can stop having it be a strategy to use a position player as a pitcher. That's got to end. That used to be kind of fun every once in a while. Now it's like, nope. That can't be part of the strategy of baseball. That can't be. When we come back, we are going to go through a couple more viewer comments and throw the new trivia question out there. Aloha Uehara, who's another everyday Sully, says, totally with you on the uselessness of strikeouts. Give me a ground up moving a runner and a sac fly. Scoring and productive outs are like half hits. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the acceptance of a strikeout. I understand a strikeout in many ways is better than a double play. I get that. I do. But if we start adding speed to our game and we start putting balls into play, then you can possibly have, I don't know, something happen. We saw the Yankees commit 5 errors yesterday. We see some teams that are not really, I don't know, defensively sound. You should take advantage of it. One of my favorite plays in baseball is a ground ball that finds that weird space between first base and third base. I love that. I love that because it forces some anarchy of the third baseman running in, the pitcher maybe covering it, and having to try to beat the runner out. Those ground balls that are perfectly placed in so many ways are, I think, more entertaining than a home run, because there's a little bit of what's going to happen. That's why I like bunting for a base hit. That's actually why I like bunting. I enjoy a bunt. When done correctly, it causes chaos. And the more chaos there is in the field, the more fun the game is. Do you know what has zero chaos? A strikeout. There's no chance of an error. There's no chance of a fluke play. There's no chance of a great play. There's no chance of a great, I love it when there's that weird ground ball play and the third baseman comes in bare hands and throws and beats the runner out. That's exciting. Do you know what's not exciting? You know, swing and a miss. Yeah, it's exciting when you get out of an inning fine. But at the same time, when every single game it's 10, 11 strikeouts, the defense is sitting there with a glove on their head blowing dandelions in right field because what's the deal? I like balls being put into play because something could potentially happen, positively or negatively. A couple other things here. Oh, this one I found interesting. This is from Big John 08865, who's on this show every time. Assuming the A's get a new owner tomorrow, that would be great. Do you think the city of Oakland would be friendly towards them and willing to negotiate, or is that bridge burned forever? Um, I think I think baseball's gone from Oakland. I think a dirty secret in baseball is they've been wanting the Bay Area to be a one team region for a while. The A's moved in the late 60s when the Giants were already there. And for whatever reason, and I love Bay Area baseball. I lived many years in the Bay Area. I love going to Giants games. I love going to A's games. Giant fans are great. A's fans are great. But for whatever reason, both teams never had that moment where everything was aligned, even though they played each other in the World Series in '89. And there were several years that they both made the postseason at the same time. One had a stadium problem while the other was doing well. One was drawing well while the other wasn't. And we never got a moment where the Giants and the A's both had their stadium situation solved and everything was working on all cylinders. That's why I so badly wanted to see them build a new stadium in the parking lot of the Oakland Coliseum. The Oakland Coliseum was in the right place to have a stadium. It's just the Coliseum was falling apart. If they had a stadium like similar to what Turner Field was for the Braves. And I mentioned that because that was built in the mid 90s and they've already abandoned that. I've always said, well, dynamite around that, lift that up, bring it across the country and drop it in the parking lot of the A's play there. I think they would have drawn well. I think they would have done well. And we never got to see that. But as long as I've been following baseball, either the A's or the Giants have been threatening to move. The A's were threatening to move when I started following baseball in the late 70s. The Giants damn well almost did move in 1992. The A's have talked about moving for a long time. And now that the A's are out, I think even if they stay in Sacramento, which is Sacramento is not the Bay Area. And I still kind of think they're going to stay there. I'll believe Las Vegas when I see it. I think baseball has wanted that to be a one team region. And now the Giants have it all to themselves. I think the Giants are going to start to become one of those big market, big revenues because there's so much money in the Bay Area. There's so much corporate money in the Bay Area, and it's a big size region, and it will probably take a generation before Oakland fans become San Francisco fans. It will eventually happen, but my generation and the generation after me are still going to be stubborn. But if you go in about 15 or 20 years, the East Bay will be wearing the black and orange, and they'll be 49er fans as well. I know a bunch of people in the East Bay. I can just hear my buddy Donald Marquez kind of throw up in his mouth when I said that. But you know what? That's just going to happen. The A's are going to be ancient history in about a generation. And that's just a fact. And I don't think they're going to be coming back. Sad to say. And I may pronounce some of this incorrectly. El Romanolo, love the In Memoriam. Thank you. Especially Orlando Perchin Cepeda hitting a home run. My city, Caracas, during the Serie de Caribe while playing with Puerto Rico. If I'm not wrong, Mays also played. Yeah. First of all, thanks for the compliment about the In Memoriam. And yes, I love putting the stuff about Orlando Cepeda at the end. And yes, Willie Mays did play several years in Puerto Rico. At one point, his teammate was Roberto Clemente in one of the Caribbean League series. Man, that would be something to go back in time, because there were a lot of leagues in the Caribbean and in Mexico who were a lot more open for some of the stars from the Negro leagues to be playing there before, that period of time during segregation of baseball, where the major leagues, quote, organized baseball, unquote, would not let some of the greatest players in the history of baseball play simply because of the color of their skin. And a lot of those players wound up finding the respect and avoiding the segregation, avoiding the racial taunts by playing in Mexico, by playing in Puerto Rico, by playing in Caracas, like you said, in Venezuela. And I would love to go back in time and see some of those series. In fact, one of my bucket list moments of baseball is to go to the Caribbean series, because I understand that is some of the most fun you're going to see in baseball. You see major leaguers playing in it, and apparently it's like a carnival, and the enthusiasm there is probably just through the roof. So thanks for the response there. And yeah, Willie Mays did play alongside several greats in the Sierra de Mundial. I probably said a lot of things incorrectly there. Forgive me. All right, that's going to lead us to our trivia question, and it's a simple one. Who was the first player to make $100,000 a season? Salaries are out of control, this, that, or the other thing, whatever you want to say. Who was the first one to make six figures a year as a player? Put the answer down here in YouTube. And thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast with hosts Dominic Martino and Matthew Ane. Fantasy baseball draft season is here. Be the most informed fan and set your game up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you find your podcasts. Talking about weird bats and balls flying out of the yard, owning baseball, and bridges being burned in Oakland. This has been Locked On MLB with technical difficulties. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.